Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here. Integrity today. I'm going to when I started these, I told you we were going to do 10 minutes of teaching, 10 minutes of Q&A. And if you know me at all, then you know uh, I probably should have extended this from a time perspective from the beginning and said I'm going to do 15 or 20 minutes of teaching and then more, because me doing 10 minutes of anything is unlikely. So, with discipline and use of time, and in this video of integrity, and you'll see why I'm doing this, I am going to be disciplined and respectful of your time and efficient, and I'm going to stay to 10 minutes of teaching and 10 minutes of Q&A, so we're not extending these to 40-minute sessions when they were designed to be useful, highly impactful 20-minute sessions. So here we are with the skill of integrity. And often we don't think of integrity as a skill. Integrity has either a moral connotation, it has a character connotation, and we don't think of it as a skill, when in fact it is a skill. And I think the starting point for integrity has to be the recognition and put on the table that it is by far the most frequent claim of every business, leader, coach, politician, and person who is trying to gain credibility or claim their right to a position, and trying to influence you and let you know this is what I stand for. And it puts up a red flag for me. It always has. Because any time in life, everyone is claiming the same thing, we can be certain they're not doing it. We can be certain they want the credit for it without actually putting in the price to earn it. And so when every politician claims integrity, when every business we operate on a foundation of integrity, they can't all be referring to and meaning the exact same thing. And so we need to understand what integrity actually is. And I don't think there's anything that's more often claimed that is more misunderstood than this particular word. I actually believe that this tops the list. This is the most frequent claim with the least understanding behind it, or at least the most misunderstanding behind it. Because here's what the simple skill of integrity is. Integrity is choosing what you believe and aligning your action with those beliefs. And maybe in between there, it's choosing what you believe, it's setting the standards for it, and then it is aligning your action to meet those standards. That's all integrity is. It doesn't say what those beliefs need to be. It doesn't say what those standards need to be. And it doesn't say what action you need to engage in beyond the beliefs that you've chosen for yourself and the standards that you have set. That's what integrity is. The word integrity actually comes from the Latin word integritas, which means to be, specifically means to be whole, to be complete, to be consistent. This is where we get the word, so you see that the connection. It's actually where we get the word integrity for our lives comes from the Latin use of this, and that's why we use in engineering, we use structural integrity. When we say something has integrity or lacks integrity, that is to indicate or account for its wholeness, its completeness, its consistency, or it lacks integrity, meaning it is not whole, not complete, not consistent. A building that lacks structural integrity has what? Weak points where it might topple. Its structural integrity in its foundation, or the integrity of its beams. The beams are what? They are weak. Well, in us, what does that mean? If it lacks integrity, it's not indicating somebody who is morally corrupt. It's not indicating somebody who's not a good person. It's not indicating somebody who doesn't do the right thing, which is how integrity gets defined in 90% of environments do the right thing. Well, what's the right thing? Who decides what the right thing is? And who's to say that your right means that I'm wrong, or my right means that you're wrong? Right is not an objective standard. Right is subjective. Context changes it. Opinion changes it. Background changes it. Okay? We can debate right all day long, and that's why in environments that define integrity as the right thing, you can't hold somebody accountable to that, because next thing you know, if you're going to eventually argue over what is right, and there's too much interpretation that exists out there. So, in somebody who lacks integrity, it's not a moral issue or a right-wrong issue. It's a chosen beliefs, set standards, and aligned behaviors issue, which means we have to choose, we have to set where our standards are, and then we have to align our behavior. And in the midst of that, people are not going to choose the same beliefs as us. They're not going to set the same standards as us, and they're not going to align their behavior the same way that we do. Somebody who lacks integrity is somebody who is not whole and complete with acting in alignment with standards they claim, principles that they're promoting or preaching, or beliefs that they have chosen. That's what lacking integrity is. Integrity is inconsistency or misalignment between stated beliefs and proven actions. So, how do we actually go through this? Let's, I guess I do want to start with this. I want a couple pieces, and again, for all of you who are watching, who've been here each day, that what I'm looking at is I'm making sure I want to be pulling from the guide. I want to be giving you some pieces from these 20 trainable behavior skills that unleash greatness inside this guide, and I want to be giving you concrete stuff, not just my teaching and coming off the top, because I've put a ton of work into how this has been laid out in this guide to self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-control, and I want to make sure I give you some of this. Integrity, I'm just going right into the notes. Integrity is achieved. This is so important, so important. Integrity is achieved by anyone who acts according to the standards and principles they claim. This is historically massively important. Integrity is achieved by anyone who lives according to the principles and standards they claim. Now pair this with empathy, okay? Pair integrity with empathy. When you have empathy for someone and you choose to find out what's important to them and make it important to you, and then you bring this understanding of integrity, the real understanding, anyone who lives the principles that they choose and the standards they set is living with integrity. Empathy means people are going to choose different standards than you. Their responsibility is to live the standards that they have set. Your empathy helps you recognize that people are going to set different standards than you, and they're going to live true to who they are. Just because somebody lives differently than I do, it doesn't mean that they don't have integrity. Just because somebody operates according to a different set of values than I operate by does not mean they lack integrity. What I'm looking for is, are they consistent with who they say they are? And I think we could appreciate and use a lot more of that in the world right now. So, integrity is abandoned by anyone who claims principles they don't practice. And this is where today's session is going to sting a little bit. For all of us, the self-awareness, what do you believe? What standards have you set? Do you really believe those things? And if you do really believe it, prove it. Because any principle that you claim, any value you say you have, but you're not living it, that's a gap in integrity. And if we were all in the room together and I said, who here lacks integrity? None of you would raise your hand because you don't want to be seen as the person who lacks integrity. But if we switch the definition and I said, hey, who here believes in principles and claims principles, but there's some principles that you claim and you tell other people to that you do not actively try to live in your life, hands would go up. And so in fact, we do lack integrity. We do have those things. Now, What I'm not saying is principles that you're not good at or principles you're inconsistent at. Now, we could, go to hair splitting and say, is that really a lack of integrity? And probably, but what I'm talking about here is people who say, I tell the truth. And then a moment to tell the truth that is going to hurt somebody else's feelings comes up, and then they choose not to. They are specifically not living the principle that they just said is the foundation of their life. That's an absence of integrity, right? They have abandoned integrity. So self-awareness, first and foremost with integrity, so that you have usable stuff. What do you believe and how well do you live it? Specifically, how well do you prove your beliefs in actions? That's the measure of integrity, and it's the only one that counts. You can tell how meaningful this is to me. You can tell how important I believe this principle is from the tone of my voice, from the look on my face. The amount of people who are claiming principles they are not living, people who want credit for saying good quotes and talking about high ideas, and they are not paying the price in their lives to live it while judging other people, it is too damn high. And people need to come back down to reality. And reality is, if you believe it, live it. If you don't live it, it's because you don't believe it. You want integrity? Align your attitude, action, and words. If you're not doing that, do not put integrity on your list. That's the realness. That's the truth of this. And if you're not willing to do that, you got to explain that. And you're either going to explain it with reality or you're going to explain it with a made-up story that glosses over the reality of what's going on. Now, the reason I'm expressing it like this is because this is hard work, right? This is where I believe that the core of our humanity comes from. And that is in our struggle to be who we say we are. For me, that struggle is everything. To be who we say we are. It's difficult. It's hard. There's tests. There's tests of every kind, right? There's tests of we get rewards. Do we stay consistent with who we are? We lose everything. Do we stay consistent with who we are? We get excited, bored, routine. We get teased. We get promoted. We get all kinds of different stuff, right? We get tempted. Are we living the beliefs and principles that we've claimed? So in self-control, I said three things before. Attitude, action, words. This is where the alignment comes from. And that's the word I would go to, right? All other things being equal, that's the alignment I would go to. Attitude, action, words. Integrity is align those three things. Align where my mind is, align where my action is, and align the words I speak with a specific set of beliefs that I have chosen for myself and the standards for how I get those beliefs out in real action, and then have the discipline and the self-control, which means there's two ways we can do this. Number one is you raise your standards to match the beliefs that you've set, right? You raise the standards of action to match the claim. Or number two is you lower the claim, you lower the principles that you promote and talk about and say you live by to match what you're actually willing to do, right? You can raise your behavior or you can lower your words, and either one of those brings you into a space of integrity. And it's not up to me or anyone else to decide what those need to do. And I could make a case we probably need to do a little bit of both, right? There's nothing right or wrong with either one of those. It's the alignment that really matters. And then the last piece is self-confidence. It's believing in yourself. And, the act of integrity is work, right? It's sweat. It is strain. It is struggle. But it's also the enjoyment and the energy that comes from living in alignment. Living out of alignment, it bleeds energy. It drains energy. It's a weight. It's a burden. It's an anchor on us. Not the good kind of anchor, right? A foundational piece. It's an anchor that drags. And so it's hard to live your beliefs. And in a moment of difficulty, what comes to the surface and why integrity with this level of simplicity and concreteness matters is because there's a lot of stuff that sounds good in a quote. There's a lot of stuff that feels good rolling off the tongue in front of an audience, or teaching to your kids, or talking to an athlete, or quoting on Twitter, or liking on Instagram, or watching on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff that sounds good. Integrity is the stuff that does good when it's hard. That's what integrity is. And what I want to encourage you in and feed you in, and this is where my comments will end here today, and we'll jump into the Q&A. Where I'll close with is, if you have self-awareness of what you believe and the standards that you've set, and you have self-control, again, not ever claiming perfection, just self-control and choice, where you are looking and working on aligning attitude, action, and words, and you're focusing on doing that when it's particularly hard for you to do so, self-confidence flows naturally out of that, because you know who you are, you've chosen who you are, and you're choosing to be who you are when it matters. That foundation that insulates you from a lot of the pressures from the outside world when it gets difficult, and it feeds the self-confidence to say, even though this is hard, I know where I'm coming from. Even though this is difficult, even though I'm tempted, even though there's emotions, I know how to navigate through this. That's what integrity does for you. And just like a bridge or a building that has structural integrity, the integrity is designed to withstand the environment. It's designed to withstand the wind, the earthquake, time, disruptions, weight. And we want to build our integrity to do the same. Self-awareness, self-control, and with self-confidence that naturally flows from being who we say we are and proving it, and knowing that that foundation is strong no matter what. So let's jump into Q&A. I appreciate you all being here. I get excited about this. I actually think that I think I got to my most flow state in that one of just what matters to me. This is important. I'm subjectively, personal opinion, I am tired of people claiming integrity. I'm tired of it because it means nothing anymore. Everybody makes the claim, and so few people demonstrate it in a real, observable, provable way. If you're a business who claims integrity, man, either figure out how you do that and show it in a unique way that doesn't sound like every other business, or take it off your list, because it doesn't do anything for customers anymore. If you're a team who has it, man, make sure you know how it gets proven, and make sure you're willing to pay a price for the standards that you're setting, because it's a massive, massive deal. But today we're talking about the personal, and if you guys have some team questions, we can jump into it. Okay. Questions and Q&A. Eric, you like the 20 minutes teaching and 20 minutes Q&A. I appreciate that. Thank you. Jeffrey, so integrity essentially means do what you said you were going to do. Yeah, not even essentially. That's exactly what it means. Now, and what's interesting about that, right, is, from that we can go a lot of different directions. If you say you're going to do it and you do it, that is an act of integrity. Now, people get funky with this and say, well, if I lie and then I actually lie, is that integrity? Maybe, yes, but that's not what we're talking about. Now, I will say this, if you look at something like, this is why a lot of people say, like, don't understand the mob, right? The mob is built on integrity. And it's why, if you watch any mob movie, they're all built on it. I don't have any mob experience, by the way, right? But they're all built on integrity. And so it's a culture that, maybe we don't connect to and understand, because obviously we're not living that life. But the mob is built on a model of integrity. Do what you said you were going to do. Your word, there's a code, there's loyalty in there. And if you make a mistake, there's these prices, and you never rat, and et cetera, et cetera. And so there's sort of an odd but very real picture of the principles and truth of integrity playing out in an environment that isn't exactly the one that we would want to be living, but nonetheless, that is integrity. And so that's how a structure and an environment and an organization like that it builds itself on this foundation of integrity. And, like in every mob movie, right? Without it, the whole thing crumbles. And so that's how this works. So technically, yes, obviously, you are likely to apply that in ways that are, hopefully contributing more and better things than mob stuff. But the principle stands, and so that's it's a good way to see it and kind of get out of this moral mode of looking at integrity and look at it as the functional tool that it is in reality. Didn't know I was going to do a mob explanation or analogy today, but here we are. M3 Wally. When I, Brian, am out of integrity, how do I get back into integrity? Yeah, great question. When I'm out of integrity, I literally move through the three, and this is the structure I use is self-awareness, self-control, self-confidence. That was something that's been something that was a structure in my life that I used for years before I ever taught it. Eventually it became so functionally useful for me as an evaluation and filter that I started teaching it. That's what I do. So the first piece when I get out of integrity is I let self-awareness be my trigger. And you've heard me say this statement before, I use self-awareness without self-judgment. So the first thing I do across my whole life is I acknowledge the fact that no matter how hard I try and how good I get, part of being a human is that we're not always aligned in everything. That's just part of being human, right? We are a massively complex system in one human body of physical stuff, emotional stuff, mental stuff, pattern stuff, memory stuff, right? With external stimulus affecting us in all kinds of ways. No matter what I do, I'm going to be living in a constant state of imperfection. So the first thing I do is self-awareness with no self-judgment. And I move from awareness of my gap in integrity to, all right, how do I regain self-control to pull myself back into alignment? It's like if you were on a ship, right? And what happens on a ship is you're going to have self-awareness of your course. But if you've ever seen somebody drive a boat for the first time, what they'll do is they'll be going a certain direction, realize they're off, and then they'll go like this, and they'll try to course correct. And what they'll do is they'll make these massive, major, oh my gosh, and then the boat does this, right? So to align a boat, like aligning ourselves, when we find ourselves off course, right? Small adjustments to realign, right? Start looking at what's the first thing I need to do. First thing I need to do. First thing I need to do. Self-control, self-control, self-control. And I'll just pull myself back into alignment. And along the way, what those adjustments do is they bring me back to the self-confidence of, yeah, that's where I need to be. Yeah, that's who I am. Yeah, that's how I need to live. Yeah, that's my decision. And especially when it's painful to do it, right? Like telling the truth to somebody when it's going to hurt their feelings, or, I've had to, I own a business, so I've had to deliver really hard news to teammates. I've had to take stuff from clients when I've made mistakes. I've had to fire people. I've had to let people go. I've had to let people know that we weren't hiring. All the hard ways that we have to deliver these things. It's easy to convince ourselves not to do the thing we know we need to do. So it's minor self-awareness, self-control in the little thing to pull myself back into alignment, and I do a bunch of them, and that naturally feeds the self-confidence that, yeah, that's where I want to be. I am making the integrity decision, and it matters here, even if it's hurting out here. Jeffrey, I think for some people, self-confidence comes first, and they end up believing everything they do is right, and they are operating with integrity. Yeah, a lot of people confuse self-righteousness with self-confidence. They have self-confidence, and this is why self-awareness comes first, I think, and why I would encourage you is, if you don't have self-awareness of your choices, you can end up thinking you have self-confidence, but in reality, you have blind confidence. Right, you have self-righteousness, and unfortunately, there are a lot of people who operate that way. They have a self-righteousness in their claim, and they are detached from the self-awareness and self-control of whether they're living it. They are far more interested in projecting that value onto other people than they are in looking at whether they're living that value themselves. And I don't suffer people like that. I just don't. If I'm there and I'm around, I call it out because I think there's no weaker claim than that, especially for somebody in a position of authority or leadership or leading young people in particular. What's the first step I do when my integrity is tested? Stay in alignment. Maintain, hold self-control. Decide what is my center aiming point. That's it. Because it's E plus R equals O and integrity. That's it. When it's tested, it's E plus R equals O and my standards. That's it. Now, I will say this. I will either do one of two things. I will slow down and get perspective, right? I'll slow down and get perspective if I don't need to act. And I'll pull into self-awareness and stay in that self-control zone by slowing down and observing. Or number two is I will immediately act on that integrity line of my beliefs, my standards, with action that proves where I need to be. I'll do one of those two things. And I find those two things keep me in alignment. Those are the two ways I stay aligned. I need to know if I want to know if I need perspective, which I do a lot of times. And a lot of situations call for perspective. Other times they call for, oh no, you need to make sure you are acting in alignment right now because showing, demonstrating, doing, proving, sometimes, it's people need to see you do it, right? Like if my family needs to see me doing something or whatever, whoever, a team needs to see stuff, you got to go put yourself out there and just look for the smallest piece of integrity you can attach to and then go in on that. That's what I do. Susan just had a breakthrough moment. Good. I'm glad. Don't know what it was. Would love to hear about it. You can send me an email, bk@dailydiscipline.com, for any of you who are getting out of these. I'd love to hear those notes. You can also, we can continue this dialogue in the community, dailydiscipline.com/community. If you're interested in joining there and having conversations about all of these things, and in the resources section, that's where you can get the Essential 2020 Guide to self-awareness, self-control, and self-confidence. If you're interested in knowing yourself, controlling yourself, believing in yourself, and pulling that holy trinity together of personal management, I think it's a great resource and investment for all of you. I really do. Okay, last couple questions. How do we get people to get reps on integrity as a skill, thinking as a coach or a teacher? Kevin, reps of integrity and skill are as follows. Simplify it and don't change it. What beliefs have they chosen? If they haven't chosen them, get the reps of choosing it. You can't get reps in acting in alignment with beliefs you've never chosen. Set the standards for those beliefs. So I believe in telling the truth. All right, we can all agree with that. What's the standard? Whoa, what do you mean? Well, when do you tell the truth? How often do you tell the truth? Do you tell the truth every time? If somebody asks you a question, do you answer truthfully no matter what? Does the truth mean every opinion you have, you express it just as you have it in your head at all times? You find out real quickly it's not as easy as just setting a belief, because if you don't set the standards, next thing you know, the world is way too big and things are way too complex. So setting the standards for those beliefs is then the platform that puts you in a position to go get the reps. The reps look like this. The reps look like three things, very simple and straightforward in action. Once you've chosen your beliefs and set your standards, and now you do the work of alignment, it is this. You reward action that is in alignment. And reward looks like good job, high five, again, for yourself or whoever. It's everything from just recognition of, yeah, that was a good job, simple, to celebration or, whatever, like for a team or a coach, a player who acts with a high level of integrity, holds a super high standard when no one's watching, they get to wear the number that they want on the team, or they get a Gatorade, their favorite color Gatorade, they get to go pick first. Again, whatever the reward that reinforces, even at a base human level. So one, reward. Number two, challenge or correct. I guess the second one would be correct, right? First is reward. Second is correct gaps, right? Just gaps, inconsistencies, mistakes, errors, those kinds of things, right? Let's just kind of correct and coach them up. And then number three is you challenge absences of integrity. You do not let them slip. Now, you scale it up and down depending on what it is, but if somebody has a gap of integrity, what needs to happen is, it's like, I always look at it as like, if integrity is this box, right? Here's what we've said we believe in and the standards. And if somebody behaves in alignment with that box, inside the box, we say, thank you, good job. If somebody behaves kind of on the border, we want to coach it and correct it, bring it back in. If somebody behaves outside that box, what happens is we don't draw that box really clearly because we don't want to look at those behaviors that are outside who we say we are. So all we need to do is make sure that all those behaviors get seen, recognized, and said, hey, we didn't miss it. We see them. And if they're fairly close to the box, we still recognize it and call it out. If it's way out of the box, well, now the consequences get escalated. So that's the best way to get reps is making sure that we're rewarding, coaching and correcting, and then challenging on that scale of with integrity to without integrity. Jeffrey, let's say a football team has integrity as a core value and another core value is service, but the team is not serving one another, not serving school, communities, simply not acting on service. Well, then the team has an absence of integrity. It's very straightforward. And the more we don't kind of get lost in definitions and complexities, don't BS it. Like, if you're not doing it, it's because you don't really believe it, period. Because the things we believe in, we do. And does a coach focus on service to realign with integrity, or does a coach reevaluate and potentially remove service as a core value for future seasons? You can do either one. Right? That's back to raise the standards or lower the words. It's not up to me to decide, because your beliefs and your standards are for you to choose based on the attitude, action, and behavior that you want to align with. Cool. Okay, everyone, I appreciate you. Thank you. We trimmed down the time a little bit. We went a little lower, but the Q&A here was great. I hope this has been as valuable for you guys as it was for me. I had fun doing this one. I brought some juice today, and specifically what I showed you guys is, some of the emotion that is behind this, because emotion is this wonderful, incredible tool that does so much for us. And it can work for us and it can work against us, and it gets a bad rap a lot of times. And so tomorrow, that is the skill that we're going to dig into. How do we use emotion as a tool to enhance us and accelerate us and improve us? And how do we slow it down from being that thing that holds us back and derails us? Because all the best stuff in life is in emotions. All the best stuff in life is in emotions. But unfortunately, most of the hardest stuff in life and hardest things about life is dealing with and pushing through those emotions that are a struggle. So tomorrow we're going to dig into the simple skill of emotions, and we will be at 8:30 p.m. tomorrow night. We're going to do a night session, mixing it up a little bit, partly because of schedule, partly because I want to access different people and give other people a chance who this time doesn't work for, a chance to see these things live. So we're going to do a night session. Maybe we'll bring a nightcap with us, and we'll enjoy maybe a glass of bourbon or a glass of wine, and we'll dig into emotion. So I'll see you all tomorrow.